Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about why I think this upcoming winter 2021-2022 has a very good chance of being cold and snowy and also rather extreme overall for many folks across the United States and southern Canada. I do want to say that when usually people refer to a cold and snowy winter, it doesn't mean everyone will be seeing a cold and snowy winter. For example, last year, overall, if you look at what NOAA says, and if you just search up on Wikipedia or any website, the review of the winter, it's going to be classified as a cold and snowy winter because over half of the United States saw conditions that met that requirement: above average snow and below average temperatures. Now, there are many locations last year that didn't get much of a winter, and I'm sure people will be like, how was that a cold and snowy winter? Again, the majority rules, and it's usually based on, if 55% of the United States saw cold and snowy winter, it won't be called a warm and snowless winter, right? So again, there will be still folks this upcoming winter that do see a warm winter, and I'll show you which areas I think have a good chance of seeing that. And I think that again, those areas will still be less than half by quite a bit. I do want to mention that before we get into this video, guys, if you like this type of speculation videos, if you like weather forecasting, I'm a hobbyist enthusiast, consider subscribing. Obviously, don't subscribe just because I told you so. Watch the video, enjoy it first, and then consider doing that. I'm just reminding you about it. Liking the video, same application. If you like it, please like it. And if you have any comments or concerns, leave them down below. Let's begin talking about this. The speculation. And again, I don't want to say that my confidence in this forecast, it's somewhat there, and I would say that it's I'm more confident about this year than other years. So there's that. But again, I haven't been accurate about every single year, and neither has been NOAA or the Climate Prediction Center. But that's kind of the fun about it, all right? Anyone can be right. So the first thing I want to look at is the Pacific Ocean, and that's the ocean obviously that stretches from both coasts of the Americas, the western coasts, to the eastern coasts of Australia, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Japan, China, and whatnot. So this ocean, we want to find it even more down into a separate category, and what we're trying to look at is the ENSO, the ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So this is basically looking at whether or not the temperature anomalies, so again, this isn't the actual temperature of the ocean, it wouldn't be 0.4 degrees below freezing. That would be very bad news. This is compared to average. So the average is, for example, say 95. It is pretty warm, the ocean here. If it's 90, then this would be 89.6, right? So this is based on average, and what we're trying to find is whether or not it is cooler or warmer. And what we have right now is a bit of a cooler air mass, but it's hard to predict really. It doesn't take a genius to show you whether or not it's cooler or warmer, but it's harder to predict what will happen in the future. And many of you may be thinking, how is that even possible? Well, it's outside of my realm of abilities, but thankfully we have this thing called weather models and climate models. So if we were to take a look at this PowerPoint presentation that is assembled by and updated by NOAA and the National Weather Service and all its various organizations, what we have here are models that are given to us, and you can see this is one example of it. These are models specifically forecasting whether or not it will be above average or below average across this area of water. And you can see that, I do apologize, where am I going with this? There we go. They're forecasting this to be cooler, as notice we are right there. So according to this, we're already in a La Nina, but for now, let's just say it predicts a transition into a La Nina into the next month, and it will continue through fall and winter, and it's pretty darn confident. Usually we have years where this line is kind of with its various models. Again, if you see those little spaghetti strings, each one of those, that's one individual model. That black dash is kind of the average, and look, it takes us into a -1, 1.5. That is way below the criteria for a La Nina, which is at -0.5, and an El Nino, +0.5, and then you're in between as a neutral. So you could see the models are pretty darn confident that there will be a La Nina really up until March, almost spring of next year, and it's been kind of growing. I do want to show you another set of models, as this is just one. I would say based on the 3-4 years I've been using this. Holy cow. I think it actually might be my 5th year of using this slideshow. Goodness, time does fly. I still remember the day when I found out about this thing. I think I was a freshman or eighth grader. And I've been, yes, visiting it pretty much monthly. So, based on my observations, this one has been more accurate throughout the years. This one does a good job, but I mean, you can see it shows a similar thing, a La Nina more likely than a neutral, but it definitely is a bit more disorganized. But you could see that the summary here, most models indicate borderline or weak La Nina, according to that group of models, and that kind of area of ocean they predict for. But again, I would say this one is more accurate based on what we've been seeing, and you can see this is what the Climate Prediction Center thinks will happen. They give it almost an 80% chance of occurring during this fall and diminishing throughout the winter months, but definitely still being the most likely scenario. So what on earth does this La Nina, El Nino mean? What's the point of this if I don't even know what it is? Well, it's actually translates pretty directly into the impact of the winter weather across the United States. This is what a classic La Nina is. So see my cursor right here, this little image in the upper right-hand corner of the screen right now. This shows a La Nina. Typically what that means is drier and warmer across the south. Not always. And that's really the thing with this. Even if we've gotten through all that junk, all that mess that I just showed you, and we did figure out that there may be a La Nina, it differs. Each La Nina is so darn different that it just makes weather forecasting borderline impossible very, very far out. And I mean, that's literally what it is. It's pretty much impossible. It's a guess. It's an educated guess, if you will, a forecast, especially this far out. And notice, we do have, during most La Ninas, a drier and warmer southern United States. Again, that wouldn't be a snowy winter for you folks if that were to come true. However, again, they vary. Weather for the Northwest, that seems to be the most consistent with all La Ninas, that the Northwest is wet, definitely way more consistent than the South, being drier and warmer with all La Ninas. And also, look at that, cooler across a good chunk of the Northwest, the Southwestern United States, and into Alaska. This is, again, usually what happens. The question is, some years this spills way out into the east and the southern United States. Sometimes it stays even more secluded than what we have shown here. Regarding the Midwest, it's a toss-up. Sometimes it's drier, warmer kind of affects this area. Sometimes it's very cold. Most years it's a bit wetter, and that's pretty consistent for the Great Lakes region. The Northeast, again, usually bigger systems, but it's usually a battle show between different, again, conditions of drier, warmer, colder, snowier. So it helps us a bit, but not by a ton. So what I want to kind of focus on right now is go back to the PowerPoint and focus on La Nina years that are similar to the ones we have. And what I mean by that is, well, notice how we went from a La Nina into a neutral during the summer, right, which is basically when that water temperature is neither above or below average. And now we're again predicted to go back into La Nina. By the way, yes, last winter was a La Nina. So I looked at years prior that were like that. It came from not necessarily a La Nina, but it just transitioned from a neutral summer into a La Nina. The first year that does that was, well, last year. Look, neutral, La Nina. Then look, 2017, neutral, La Nina, right? I did not choose 2016, 2017 because look, the La Nina stopped before it even hit January, so I didn't choose that year. Our next year that I chose was I think 2011, if I'm sure, I think I did because it was a neutral and then a La Nina. Regardless, I went back to, I think 1980, and I did this with many years, and I prepared a little slideshow presentation. I've showed this many times before on here, but I think it serves a good news or a good kind of representation of what I think will come, especially since now it is fall, and we're getting closer to winter. So the other thing I want to mention that is, right, so I chose all these years, September through November, and I chose the fall time of all those years that are similar to this current year. And what I found by looking at these years, the fall time of them, kind of the fall preceding to the winter, so what we're in right now is that usually falls are pretty warm, preceding a La Nina winter compared, that is pretty similar to the one we may be entering. So if you were to look at our forecast right now, right, your temperature it's been hot across the United States. There have been very few locations that have been cooler, and it's been mainly warm. So you may be thinking, oh, that's a bad sign. No, it's a pretty good sign. Look at all these years that are, again, comparable that I showed you, I picked out, to our current year. Look what their falls looked like. Look, very warm. Last year it was a bit cooler across the north central United States. Really just southern Canada it was warm. Look at 2017, again, a very similar year. Look how warm fall was. very warm. I will show you the winter months of these years in just a second. But look at this, 2008, very similar year. It did have a bit more cooler air towards the south. Again, why was that? That's debatable, but you could see that there is quite a bit of warmer temperatures across the north, the northwest, and southern Canada. Again, maybe not as warm as some certain years like 2017. 2005, another year, another great similarity. We do have a bit of cooler temperatures across the west coast there. Again, there are some variations as not all years are the same, but I mean, gosh darn it, this is pretty consistent for year to year of this being this far out. So what am I doing? That just switched without my permission. That was weird. All right, 1998, another year that I think is similar to our year based on just the ocean anomalies at the Enzo region. And look, we have another warm fall. Again, I will show you the winter months of all of these. Of course, there always are outliers, and I don't want to be cherry picking or accused. What is going on? I don't want to be accused of cherry picking. Sorry about that. Just keeps jumping. So I chose a year I showed you the year that is an outlier. And you can see the fall of this year was very cold, 1995. May that be this year? Possibly. But again, based on how things are shaping up, not really. But I'll show you the winter month of this fall anyways as well. 1983. Not really an outlier. It did show a bit more cold towards the northwest. The winter kind of impacts of the La Nina may have started earlier in November. Still though, especially if I were to limit this through September and October, which I did, but I didn't show you this, didn't include on this slideshow, it was warmer. And again, that kind of adds up with what we are seeing currently. So my confidence has been growing pretty much as we continue to get closer and closer to winter. And you may be wondering, okay, that seems obvious. No, because, my confidence may be shrinking if, for example, I was forecasting one thing since July and I started seeing a very, very cold fall and double, kind of second guessing myself. But again, at this point, it looks pretty good. And another outlier year. You could see this one was definitely a bit interesting, was a complete outlier. But they all had really good results in terms of what they showed for the winter months. So before I show you what they showed for the winter months, this is what they showed for precip all these fall years. Notice there wasn't as much of a trend, maybe a bit drier towards the south. That's not really the case this year. A bit wetter towards the northwest. It has been wetter now in the northwest than it was, say, during the summer, but I wouldn't say overly wet. And again, the precip during the fall isn't as big of a trend as the temperatures are. And let me show you all these years averaged out. Look at that. Almost every corner of the country is warm. Let's take a look at these winters. Let's say, and again, I included this slideshow before I showed you the winters. I don't know why it does that. It's just glitching right there. But I wanted to show you this because this is what the Climate Prediction Center thinks our October will look like. Come on, why is this doing it? Okay, if it disappears one more time, I'll just, okay, but notice what we have, right, is above average temperatures. This is what they think. This was issued 2 days ago, September 16th, and this is what they think October will look like. A warm October, and honestly, they're not always accurate, right? And I've mentioned that before, but they're the best source that could be accurate, and I 100% agree with them here. I think that it will be a very, very warm fall. I think October may not be as warm as they're showing here, or I wouldn't be as confident per se, but I think it will be warm. So yeah, maybe some shots of cool weather, especially across the northwest where they have those equal chances. And in terms of precip, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a bit, in terms of long-range forecasting, it's not that important. But with that trend, I do think that it will be a warm fall, and in the end, that adds up with all the ones I showed you. Okay, so what on earth do the winters look like of all those years? Well, take a look at last year. It definitely wasn't a warm winter for many folks. It was actually, again, more cooler than warm. For southern Canada, maybe it was a bit warmer, and you can see that it is represented there. And I will show you the precipitation at the end of all these years as well. This was 2017, 2018. If you recall, this year, the 2017 fall preceding what I'm showing you right here was extremely warm. It stayed warm for the southwest, but there were some brutal outbreaks of air and of cold air and some pretty intense snowstorms during this year. And you can see that is marked by this map. A bit of warmth maybe towards the mid-Atlantic, but again, you can see that if there is cold, it seems to be centered across the north and the northwest. Last year was a bit of an outlier, but it didn't show any warmth at least. All right, this was 2008. Again, favoring more cool than warm air, and if it did show warm air, there wasn't a lot of it. It was definitely a bit more cooler of the air. 2005, 2006, it was an outlier year. It was an overall generally a bit warmer of a winter, not by much, but it was generally a bit warmer. So again, that was again, there always is a year that doesn't add to the pattern, which is expected. Here was, well, let's go back there. Come on, 1999. Notice another year that the fall was warm and the winter was also warm. However, if it was cool, it was cooler across the northwest and the southwestern Canada area. I do want to say that despite this being a warm winter, there were many locations that saw very snowy winter here during this year. So that doesn't mean just because it's a warm winter, it'll be a snowless winter. But obviously, the chances of that do diminish a bit. And this was 1985. You could see classic, very very cold winter supportive. I did not mean that to change. I don't know why it does that. It's bugging out today. But you could see this winter definitely did follow the pattern. It was a very cold winter following I think this year that I showed you, this 1985, the fall preceding this was also chilly, but you could see that even if it was an outlier in terms of warm temperatures, the fall or the winter was cold. And you could see 1984 winter was also relatively chilly, definitely more chilly than warm. Okay, and this was all the years kind of compiled, all the years that I just showed you, their winter months. And again, I hope it was a bit confusing showing you all these years, but I want to quickly jump back and show you. This is what the falls looked like, and this is what the winters looked like of all those years right here. You could see quite a remarkable change. Definitely not as warm, only a few locations favored to be warm across the southwest, the northeast, and most locations are chilly or at least normal. In terms of precip, and I did show you the precipitation, not by yearly basis, but just overall. Look, we do have some very strong indications. Again, a bit of a drier pattern seems to be the trend with most models for the Southwest, which again, I think this year will be drier for the Southwest. But look, the Northwest, Southwestern Canada, it is definitely wetter, and a lot of the Northeast, the Great Lakes, the Southeastern Canada area, it is wetter. And obviously, if you have, these blue colors indicating more wet with even just normal temperatures, maybe not above average, but normal, especially below average, you could assume that there will be more snow. And that especially applies to the Northwest. So, what does that mean? What does this all mean for this upcoming winter? Well, I'm pretty darn confident at this point. And again, this warm fall that we're starting to see unfold is just boosting my confidence that we're going into a classic La Nina winter where the northwestern part of the United States and southwestern Canada will be cold and will be receiving quite a bit of precipitation, which again is a brilliant thing because those folks need it so bad. They're in a very bad drought. There are some bad news there's some bad news to this. The Southwest, I think, will be drier. How dry? Below average. I don't know how below average, and that doesn't help out a lot because again, these folks have been stuck in a very bad drought for a very long time. They most likely won't see any alleviation. And again, based on what the Climate Prediction Center says and NOAA, I think what I just said they can agree with on the Southwest being unfortunately drier. In terms of the Midwest, the Northeast, the Great Lakes, that's a huge toss-up region. I have less confidence, and really the South as well. I would say though that if out of all those areas I mentioned, I would say that I'm more confident about the Great Lakes and the Northeast. I think these folks may see some cold air. I wouldn't say it's going to be brutally cold winter. I would rather favor it. I'm more confident in it being a snowier winter or a wetter winter than a colder winter. I think that there will be some Arctic shots. Let me go back to the winter of 2017-2018. That year was very warm. The fall, just like this year, and that's not the right year, right there. And I'm seeing some really good similarities with this. And if you recall, the 2017 December, there was a brutal Arctic outbreak across the United States into New Year's. It made temperatures go well below freezing, and overall it wasn't a cold winter, but all it took was that little Arctic shot, and again, that kind of changed a lot of perspectives for folks, and I think that will be the case this year. So there will be not sustained cold below average. I don't think it will be sustained warmth either, but there will be a few brutal Arctic outbreaks, few brutal shots, as there was last year, if you recall, that happened across Texas and the South. And I think that the weather pattern will be more consistent throughout the winter. So I do think that the Northeast, especially inland Northeast, will be wetter, snowier. Same thing with the northern Great Lakes. The upper plains, maybe not as snowy, but definitely below average, kind of extending that cool air from the Northwest. The South, it's tough to tell. That's probably the biggest question mark. I don't know if that that warm air from the Southwest will be able to penetrate and affect most of the South and kind of affect this pattern, or will that cool and wet pattern from the North and Northeast produce enough influence on the South to produce that snowy or cold winter. And again, I do want to say that just because, maybe overall it's a warm winter for the South, but all it takes, especially if this applies to the South, all it takes is one or two good snowstorms and the whole perspective of the winter changes. If you see a giant system that brings snow all the way to the Gulf Coast, anywhere, say from Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, a foot of snow gets dropped. Many folks will be saying that was a brutally cold winter in their memories because that's what they'll remember. They won't remember the winter, for example, being 1 degree above average, if that, that kind of ends up being the theme for that winter. Folks will remember by that one snowstorm. So I do think that the possibilities for that are there. A notable year was 2017, I think, when there was a winter storm that dropped quite a bit of snow very far to the south. And again, that's all it took. That's what folks remember that winter for, was a snowy winter for the South. Even though, in terms of looking at on it at the map, let's go back and trying to find 2017 here, winter 2017. Where is this coming? Why am I having troubles doing this? Right there, winter 20. You could see it wasn't really below average or warm. It was more warm than cool. Even though, again, all it took was that one snowstorm to change your perspective. Ingredients are definitely there this year for that to happen. But I do think, again, Great Lakes, Northeast, snowier, maybe colder. Upper Plains, colder, maybe snowier. The Northwest, snowier and colder. Southwest, drier and warmer. And kind of the Mid-South, especially the Southeast, it's a big question mark. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.